Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Important Work. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and as always, I'm here with a guest, Rob. Today's guest, Rob Henry. Robert, what should I call you? Rob, Bobby, Robert? What do you, what do you like?
This is starting off with some bullshit already.
Good. Let's do it.
You've called me a lot of things. Rob, Robert, or Bobby are like the smallest percentage of things that you've called me. But I'll go with either of those three. You call me either of those three. You call me a lot of things. You've earned that.
I should say, like, how do people call you Robert? Because I've always known you as Rob, but like I see on like Facebook, it's Robert. It's very
people call me Rob in my as a brokerage owner. All my licensing is under Robert, and so
Robert.
Most people
Sir Robert. Sir Robert.
No, never that. That sounds like somebody who takes themselves way too seriously.
I was like a knight. I was like Sir Richard Branson, like Sir Robert Henry. I don't know. It sounds very proper.
I don't have his money, but I'm going there.
All right. Yeah, I know you are. Well, that's why I had you on the show today, because I feel like, we'll get into your backstory here in a second, but I feel like part of important work is like, there's regular work that you can be, you can hustle and grind and suffer. And then there's important work and you'll still hustle and grind, but sure. there's something bigger going on in important work. And I feel like I've known you for what you just said before we hit record, like 2009.
2009. Yeah.
So that's like 10 years.
10 years. Yep.
And I mean, just to see like where you were and where you've come, and like you're just living life really big right now. And I wouldn't say I'm jealous or envious. I'm just really proud and I'm inspired by what it is that you're doing with life and how you're bringing others along with you in this important work. And so I wanted to interview you and unpack, how did you get there? Like, was it just an easy road? And like, how do you convey that to others so that the important work spreads? And I don't know, let's see where the conversation goes.
Well, so I'm going to blow quite a bit of smoke up your ass, and it's
blow away.
It's really well deserved. You have known me since 2009.
Yeah.
And I met you because you were the team leader at the real estate brokerage that I joined. Yeah. And boy, you really caught my attention because there was some shit you said that just did not compute. I think you saw in me that I was a guy willing to do the work. I was willing to work hard. I brought work.
You're
ethic.
a hard worker. Yeah.
I brought work ethic, and I thank God. I thank my mother for that. I brought work ethic, but boy, I was the guy that would continually beat my head against the wall and just think, maybe I just need to give it 110% or 120%, and I'll have my breakthrough. And I was fortunate enough to meet you, and you, excuse me for a second. and you were gracious enough and elegant enough to be able to take me aside and catch my attention and help me sort of realign and really connect to what you're calling now important work. As I would experience frustration, you would coach me and you would mentor me about like, look, embrace the frustration because it really means then that you're growing. You're hitting a ceiling or a boundary that you're not used to experiencing. And wow, was that ever true in real estate? I got into real estate thinking, I mean, if those guys could do it, I could do this.
Yeah.
And one of the early lessons that you really taught me is understanding myself so that I can better understand others. You taught, for example, one of the first classes that I attended that you taught was the DISC personality profile.
Right.
Whoa, I was fascinated because I'm a driver. I'm a high D personality.
Yeah.
And I want results and I want it now.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to work for it. But I also realized about myself that in doing so and not being sort of having a sensory acuity or a sensory awareness, I could also have a tendency to steamroll people. So you brought a lot of what I would call elegance and finesse to me that I'm forever grateful for. You also talked about things, it's of course, it's so fitting that what you're talking about is important work. Early on, as I started experiencing a little bit of success, you encouraged me to, Rob, you got to teach. If you want to keep your own growth and your own momentum going, you got to teach. And I went, this dude is crazy. There's no money in it. This dude is fortunately, everything else that you had, I told you I was going to be blowing smoke up your ass.
I like it. We should just make the whole episode with me. That would be incredible.
But look, I'll use it to emphasize in life, you got it. If you're committed to experiencing growth, experiencing success, if you're committed to taking your life to the next level, you got to have a coach. You got to have somebody who values you, understands where you're trying to go, and can help you see maybe what you're not seeing.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. And I'm forever grateful that somehow my life aligned in such a way that I met you. But you got me into teaching.
Yeah.
Whoa, did I ever find my passion with teaching? Chris, I don't know if I probably shared this with you, but I don't know if I brought it up since. You taught me to teach, and here I was, an agent. I didn't even have 2 years under my belt, and you had me teaching lead generation. This is something that I really enjoyed doing. You know, the more leads you have, the more opportunities you have. I'm willing to work, and so that was really like a pathway for me, finding early success. You said, Rob, you gotta teach, and boy, that first class I taught, I'm standing there in front of the room. I didn't look anyone in the eye. I was beet red. I'm red now, but I'm beet red. I was sweating so bad. I thought maybe my pitch would be, I was terrified. Chris, I didn't look anybody in the eye. I looked all the way in the back of the room, and you had such a great reputation that if you were recommending this class, like it filled the classroom. So I would, walk in. It's, oh my God, it's a full classroom.
You're always so good with people though. Like you know how to hold a room.
But look, that was learned. And really, the great thing about having a great mentor is you got me on that path. Like you believed in my ability to break through my own inhibitions and my own fears. And you talk about important work. I connected with, like, holy shit, I actually do enjoy teaching. And so for the next couple of years, as a result of that spark that you created, it turned into a wildfire. And what I mean is, I was terrified with teaching, but there were moments in it that I really enjoyed. When I was teaching people how to do lead generation in 2009, the market was just crap. And so people were really hungry for, hey, how do I find opportunity, right? And so you put me in this position where I was able to teach. And I although it terrified the crap out of me, I also I tapped into something that I enjoyed. I loved giving. So, in conjunction with your important work, that sort of became a theme as I moved forward, created a team. Right. And then, and we had our ups and our downs. We had setbacks. Ultimately I was sort of forced out of that brokerage and had to kind of start all over again and face setbacks. And I faced financial setbacks. My daughter spent 5 months fighting for her life in at the Children's Hospital, but so many valuable lessons, and I just kept coming back to the joy that adding value to others brings, and that's just if there were you call it success. Since 2015, we've opened 3 brokerages in Idaho and Washington, and it's really founded on delivering value to agents. And the model for growing a brokerage is no different than the model for gaining clients as a real estate agent, or if you're a lender, or if you're someone that owns a marketing company. The model today, I'm really passionate about that. The model today is consumers have been so oversold to and overstimulated that they stiff arm marketers. Right. We do. You walk into a Nordstrom's. I walked into Nordstrom's last week to buy a pair of jeans. I knew what I was getting. I know the brand. I know the size. I know everything that I'm going in for. And when the very nice young man says, "Hey, is there something I can help you find?" By the way, the store had been remodeled, so I actually could use some help. And Yeah. And my first instant gut reaction is, "I'm good." Yep. That's consumers today. So the point being is that to reach people today, in today's market, you've got to be someone that delivers so much value that for the consumer, and my consumer is real estate agents, right? Real estate agents, their consumers are buyers and sellers. I mean, whatever business that you're in, you've got to deliver so much value to the consumer that they just wouldn't, it wouldn't make sense to work with anyone else, that you stand out as the market expert or the expert in that field. Does that make sense? Yeah. I totally get that. I totally have that same reaction. I stiff arm all sorts of people.
But I wonder, what, like, I mean, in real estate to own a real estate company, a brokerage like you do, three of them, this is my own jadedness just because I've been in the industry forever. It's like, well, what's the important work of that, right? Like your agents are going to sell houses. Like, who cares? But I know that you have a different angle, right? You have there's something important happening in what you're creating. And I want to know.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
Yeah. What is it?
I could give a shit about real estate.
Yeah. 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 So go further. Like, what is it?
Like, you chuckle. Real estate bores the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Come on. I can't say that. Like, look, it's, the American dream, blah, 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 blah. Look, it's a great industry, right?
It's a great industry.
But it's one that when you master the ability to work with sellers, to work with buyers and navigate them through that process,
right?
That skill set.
Yeah.
As an agent, that skill set of masterfully being able to take people through a stressful transaction, an emotional transaction, a transaction that incorporates a lot of financial ramifications. Right. The skill set required to take people successfully through that process is a skill set that spills over into every other part of your life if you're willing to. And so here's what I mean. The biggest challenge that real estate agents have is right now, so I teach in multiple markets, and of course I always lead with what's your biggest challenge right now. Biggest challenge real estate agents face is, one, finding enough opportunity. Like, it's so difficult and so competitive and so challenging now to get in front of a consumer that's a big challenge for consumers. So for real estate agents, the other challenge is that real estate agents always say, and I would imagine this maps over to a lot of other industries, is that it's difficult. I have challenges getting my client to listen to my advice. Right?
Yeah.
Well, look, here's the thing. If your personal finances are a shit show, if your personal relationships are a shit show, if your work habits are lackluster, right? If your presentation skills, if your communication skills are anything less than phenomenal, like, of course they're not going to listen to you, right?
Right.
You've got to earn their trust. You got to earn their respect. You've got to be able to communicate with them in such a way. You have to communicate to their style.
Right.
You have to communicate in such a way that they understand the options in front of them, and they can sometimes make the choice of amongst some difficult choices, right?
Yeah.
I am in love with those skill sets. And I'm in love with it because, as a part of my journey, you recommended that I invest in personal development. So I've done that. I've done several different models of leadership development and personal development. And in doing so, what I found is that by having brokerages, so my important work is this. By having brokerages, I get access to these agents who are, for the most part, we're real careful on our hiring. Like, we really look to bring in good people.
Right.
People who want to serve, right? Now, the challenge with bringing in, now that's a great thing. What a great thing to be surrounded by people who want to serve. Man, I love coming in. I don't know if I told you this. We got an offer at 8X. So
what, to acquire your company?
To buy out our main office in Spokane. 8X. 8X meaning 8 times our 2 years net income. 8 times. A typical offer for a business is 2 to 4. 4 being like, wow, they really want to. We got an offer for 8X. Is probably the best offer I'll ever get in my life.
Wow.
But when you talk about important work, and you talk about when you talk about how important it is to have something that compels you, that drives you, is that it doesn't feel like work. The reason I turned down the offer is because that sinking pit feeling in my stomach. What would I do the day after it closes? Like I love coming into the office.
Yeah.
I love loving on my agents. I love being a part of taking their lives to the next. Before we had this conversation, I had 3 conversations with agents that had nothing to do with real estate.
Yeah.
It had to do with, how do I be more effective in my marriage? Like real estate this season, it's starting to get busy. And how do I make sure to service my business, but also, be present for my kids, and also, serve and be present for my spouse and, you know, juggle all of the things, right? Chris, those conversations are delicious.
Yep.
And I love being, what I found is that by owning a brokerage, I could create a scenario or an environment where I'm surrounded by people who want to grow and who want to serve and who want to make a difference in their community. And I love it. I love it so much. I turned down an offer in the millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll see that again, but
yeah. Right. How would you describe the important work? Like, how would you say your important work? Like, what is it?
I'm fortunate enough to have gotten to a place where I'm trying to say this without sounding arrogant, and I don't really know how to say it, so I'll just say it. I would encourage anybody to get to a place where money doesn't drive them. Like, get to a place financially where money is no longer a driving factor in what you do day in and day out.
Yeah.
Because it opens up a life of just A, doing what you want, and B, if you can do something that has you continue to grow and gives you the opportunity and the ability to contribute to others, that's the most fulfilling and satisfying and joyful life. So I'm fortunate enough to be in that position. A lot of broker owners, for example, are still out actively working with clients. Cambria and I, my wife and business partner and I, we don't work with clients. We solely work with and for and serve our agents. And so we put ourselves in a position where when they're struggling, when they're stumbling, we're right there next to them, pulling them along. And like you did with me, you know, conveying that we believe in them and that look, if you're growing, if you're building a business, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. That's normal. You're going to get fired by a client that, like, literally, as in your eyes, you did everything you knew to do, and you're going to get fired by a client, and it's going to hurt like being kicked in the gut, right? We love being in a position of supporting people who are wanting and desiring to grow and desiring to make a difference.
That's it. So that's what I hear when you describe that. Like, your important work is like championing people to what's next for them, like to develop themselves, to expand, to grow, to like their own personal development. I think, is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we do when a brand new agent comes on board, we spend a week with them. You know, we'll take a group of them, and one of the first things that we do is we send them home with a homework assignment that involves basically investigating their spouse and their children and their loved ones. And what I mean is, we all have 6 basic human needs that we're all trying to fulfill in life, right? Whether we're conscious of it or not, we're all striving to achieve or to fulfill these needs. And so what we do in the first week with agents is first of all, we teach them. Yeah. You're right. Most people aren't even aware. And for a lot of people, they go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. They'll start to see that they have both positive attributes and negative attributes, or negative ways that they try to achieve those needs. You know, we can achieve them in destructive ways. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, food addiction, you know, various other types of addictions are examples of ways that human beings fulfill those needs, right? Yeah. So the first week, we really teach them what it is and how it is to thrive as a human being for yourself, right? If you're on an airplane and what's the first thing they tell you? That if the oxygen mask drops, what do you got to do?
Put it on yourself first.
Yourself first, right? You can't serve others unless you're full yourself, right? So we teach them how to operate from gratitude, how to operate from an empowering state. And then we teach them now your homework assignment is go home with your spouse and find out specifically, how do I fulfill your need in our relationship to feel certainty? Yeah. How do I fulfill your need to feel variety, right? And they, like, specifically, they got to go through and get specific actions. What often happens is, you know, usually within a month or two of an agent starting with us, we have some kind of interaction with their spouse or with their family, whether it's a dinner or a company event. Their spouses will come and say, I don't know what you're doing to him, but keep doing it, right? Yeah. And so there's so much joy in knowing that we get to interact with people in our day-to-day, you know, work, right? But that interaction is positively spilling over into their life and making a difference there. Chris, that's really my passion. That's my sweet spot. That's where I enjoy being, and it all just kind of grows from there.
That's so good. I love that. Okay. I want to move the conversation towards like, cause I feel like, and this is just from the outside looking in, that there was a reinvention of Rob, right? Like and I don't know if you got to a fork in the road, but all of a sudden I just started seeing you living life in a really big way. Like you were traveling more. It was like, and I don't know, listen, I don't know if it was around the experience of Livy and just like seeing like where like life is precious. And all of a sudden there's a moment where you're like, dude, I'm just going to go. I got to go live my life as big as I can live my life because this other shit isn't worth it. So was there a moment that
it was that?
Was it that like?
Well, so my daughter, we ended up just overnight. Basically, she developed an illness. Frankly, doctors still aren't entirely sure what happened with her. But the short story of it is they diagnosed her ultimately with ulcerative colitis, which is basically a breakdown of her digestive system, her large intestine. It got so bad, she went through 12 blood transfusions. They literally spent the first 3 weeks just trying to keep her alive enough to where they can figure out what was wrong with her. They flew in specialists from all over the world, did myriads of tests, and so I won't go into all the details, but she just fought for her life. And I'll tell you something, Chris, it was by sheer fucking accident that I was able to be by her side the entire time. And what I mean by it was sheer accident, thank God I was in a business, and you were coaching me, I was in a business and I was in a trajectory, and I was at the apex of that trajectory in the sense that I just closed several double-sided transactions, large transactions with builders like that, right? And so financially, I was at a place where I could be with my daughter and be at her side while she was fighting for her life. So she was in Sacred Heart Children's Hospital, and in that process, during that time, I saw many families, many parents that they've got other kids and they've got obligations and they don't want to lose their house, and I watched them inwardly struggle with the decision, with the wanting to be there by their child's side, and financially being pulled, and they've got other kids and all of that, and so they would leave their children in the hospital. And right then and there, in that moment, I decided I will never allow myself to be in a position where I can't deploy money or my time to make a difference, to make the difference, or whether it's my kids, whether it's my spouse, whether it's loved ones. I believe that God gave us all gifts, and it really is up to us to develop those and to live outside of just ourselves. And I think you're right. I don't think you're right. I know you're right. That was really a catalyst for me, because my ability to be there happened by, not necessarily by accident, but it wasn't for that I had planned and I put money aside and I consistently and deliberately utilized money as leverage. Right.
Yeah.
And thank God I learned that lesson at the time now, because for example, we do lead generation for our agents here. Oftentimes I'll have $500,000 in marketing dollars out for months and months and months before I'll ever see a return. And especially for newer agents, we focus on training newer agents, especially for newer agents, I might not see a return on an investment I make in an agent for 18 to 24 months. Right. Wow. But it was that sitting there in the hospital and seeing oh my God, by the grace of God, I'm here and able to be with my daughter and help make a difference for her. But it was by accident. Right. And so I resolved from that moment on, if that ever happened again, it wouldn't be by accident. It would be because I used the gifts God gave me and I developed those, and I built a business and built, savings and that sort of thing. So what happens is, when you get real laser focused on a couple of things, one, making a difference, but if you want to make a difference for more people, you've got to have the financial resources to do it.
Yeah. Right.
So when you start looking at money rather than chasing money, or rather than, making just enough to get by, my sort of important work is I want to be able to reach as many people as possible. I want to be able to make a difference for as many people as possible. And oh, by the way, there's nothing wrong with making a decent living at doing it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
You'd be shocked by how many people feel like operate from a sense of guilt, like oh, I shouldn't be experiencing success. You'd be well, you wouldn't be shocked, but a lot of people would be shocked.
But I understand. Yeah, I mean,
at how many people they just cannot give themselves permission to do well financially.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
No, it's shocking. And I've seen it, but it's still shocking.
Yeah.
When you realize like money is a resource. That's it. Money's a resource.
It's a tool. It's absolutely a tool. And I've got to. I'm demolishing a block wall at my lot at the lake, right? So I can expand my beachfront, right?
Right.
Now look, I can use a ball peen hammer, I can use a sledgehammer, or I can go rent a jackhammer, or I can hire someone to do it. I got a lot of choices, right? And money is a tool that affords you the ability to have a lot of choices. And the challenge is that people end up allowing themselves to get really limited in a box with respects to how much they feel they deserve to earn.
Was there in that, so after Libby came out of the other side of that and you sort of made some decisions about the direction you were going to go in your business, your career, what you wanted to do with life, were there I'm trying to think about the reinvention, because I feel like in order for people to really embrace their important work, it's going to require that they go all in on what they see as possible and not keep holding on to what they're used to, or right. Like there's a reinvention that happens in pursuing your important work. And I want to know from where you said, like, what was different? Like what was different after that moment, besides the perspective of like, I don't ever want to have a place where I can money.
There were several things that happened all at once. And I was in a marriage that wasn't fulfilling either of us. And we definitely had, she's a great woman. I don't want to disparage her. She's a phenomenal mother, all of that. But we came to a point where we realized we had different objectives about where we wanted our lives to go. And there was a time period where we really, in spite of that, tried to work through it and work together. And there came a certain point when it was like, look, we're not doing each other or our daughter any favors. And so that's a controversial decision, right? And that's a real controversial decision. And it's not one that I made lightly, nor that she made lightly. And at the same time, I was sort of ousted from the brokerage that I was at. And so that kind of came unexpectedly. And it was like kind of an oh shit moment, and there were lots of rumors that surrounded that. And so I was going through a divorce. I went through a major car accident. I went through it was like, man, talking about being kicked in the teeth, right? Yeah. But what it forced me to do is I really put my head down and went, look, I can't do anything about the rumors. I can't do anything about, all of these other circumstances. What I can do something about is stay focused. And at the time I was active in real estate. And so it was like, how can I help as many clients as possible? Because I get a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction and joy. And by the way, make a decent living doing that. Right. And so I would say that was a real turning point for my life, because I quit focusing on a lot of things that I really am not able to make a difference with. Right. And could focus on the things that I could. And it really just expanded from there.
It's so hard to, I'm just saying this personally, like it's the amount of focus or the amount of cutting off everything else that isn't the main thing is really hard. There's a lot of places where I'll find myself holding on to stuff that's like, why hold on to that? And I haven't had to face something that is as culturally taboo as like like, let's just not be married anymore. Like the conversation of like that with the spouse, that with the kids, that with your community, like there's all sorts of shit around, making choices like that. But the kind of ruthless commitment to like, where do I want to go? Or the passionate commitment to where I want to go, and having a life that really serves you, a life that really turns you on. I think a lot of people don't, I think they have a heart for something that's important, but then they get stopped by the real commitment to go all in on those things.
I'll tell you something else, or even worse. And I'm going to say probably 70% of the population coasts. 70% of the population coasts.
Yeah.
And it really, what it comes down to is fear, right? In other words, one of the things that I do is with new agents is also, for example, I teach a seller mastery class or a listing mastery class, right? And agents are always surprised because we spend like 80% of our time talking about relationship, right? And one of the things that we'll do is, we'll go through those 6 basic human needs that we all have, right? And I talked about that earlier. And I'll ask them to rank their intimate relation, like their significant other, if you will. Rank their relationship on a scale of 1 to 10. Because look, if you want to grow, you gotta know where you're at. Yep. You've got to have a measurable goal, right?
Yep.
I would say 90%, I've taught over 5,000 agents. I would say 90% of them rank their relationship. So I have them rank their relations, their experience.
Yeah.
Their experience of their relationship. I have them rank it from a 1 to a 10. And then I go through the 6 key areas, the 6 key basic human needs. And I have like in your relationship, like how would you rate your certainty about your relationship, for example, on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Right. The majority of them come in between 5 and 7. 90% come in with 5 to 7. Well, here's the thing. If your relationship is between a 1 and a 3, you're roommates. If it's between a 4 and a 7, you're friends. You don't dip into that passion level, that excitement, that charge that you had when you first met your significant other. That doesn't happen until 8 or 9. So most people are living in relationships where they're friends, right? So let me tell you the difference in terms of serving your community and serving your clients. How you come to the equation, right? If I've got an agent that meets a young couple looking at a house, and that agent's got a passionate fire relationship that they just love, they wouldn't trade that for anything. When they feel connected with their kids, when they feel like their life is on a path that is going to provide them and their kids financial freedom, when they approach that scenario, that introduction, that meeting with this new couple, right, that's looking at their first home, my agent approaches that with a level of certainty, with a level of fire that, let me tell you something. That young, fearful couple, are we making the right decision? Is it the right time to buy a house? Can we afford this? Looks at that agent and goes, you know what? This guy, this gal seems to have their life together. I can trust her. It makes all the difference. It makes all the difference, right? So it's one of the first things that we start talking about is like, look, let's take you and get your shit right. Okay. Let's get your shit right. And then let's have it expand in concentric circles. Right. And so, I was fortunate enough that, I'm with the love of my life. She's the most amazing woman I've ever met. I spend most of my time feeling like I don't want to let her down. And in all of my personal development and growth and leadership training, I know that that's a lifestyle that you commit to, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. I was just at Date with Destiny, which is a Tony Robbins program. It's one of his flagship programs. It's fucking delicious. Okay. You were one of the biggest catalysts for me getting into personal development, but one of the biggest catalysts for me getting into leadership and coaching was I was working with someone that committed suicide, and it ripped my heart out of my chest because I'd worked with him for like 4 months, and I had no idea that what he was experiencing in his life was so painful for him inside that literally killing himself was the only option he saw as a means of relief. And it just ripped my heart out. And so I went to the coach that I had within the personal development program and said, Joe, I cannot live with being the kind of human being that can't make a difference for someone who's suffering. And she said, well, then you got to grow that skill set, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that really started that journey. But I tell you that story to tell you. So I go to this week-long, 15, 16-hour a day event that Tony Robbins does. Let me tell you something. They're phenomenal, right? And second night there is suicide night.
Oh.
And so it's remarkable. In 30 years, he's intervened with tens of thousands of people who no shit were suicidal.
Wow.
And he's never lost one, right?
Wow.
Depression, and by the way, depression is up 85% from where it was just 10 years ago. 85%, right? So there's a lot of people dealing with depression. Depression is literally a conditioning. It's a societal conditioning. It's a mindset conditioning. And by the way, it's addictive. People get addicted to problems. People get addicted to busyness. People get addicted to depression, right?
Yeah.
And so first, I'm telling you that because the first night there, or second night there, it's like, it's suicide night, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So he says, stand up on your chair if you're suicidal, right? But he creates an environment where people feel safe. And,
right.
So dozens of people stand up in their chair and he interacts with them and he just turns them around, right? And that's a skill set that I continually am working to develop.
Wow. Yeah.
Fourth night was relationship night. I've got what I feel like is the best relationship. I wouldn't trade my relationship for anything. I adore her. I worship her. I so love spending my life with her. And I swear to God, I had a moment there where I thought, we've been going at it now. This is our fourth day, going at it hard, 16, 17 hours a day, very little sleep, right? And I thought, let me text her and see if she wants to go across the street and grab a drink. During relationship night. And then he hit me. He said, how many of you own a business? So I raised my hand. How many of you own multiple businesses? Now I'm feeling really superior, right? I raised my hand again. How many of you have a mission and values directly attributed to you? Raise my hand again, right? But there's fewer hands going up. So now I really feel superior, right? Should have known this was set up. He says, how many of you have a 5-year plan for your business or businesses? Raised my hand. And then he got me, hit me right between the eyes. He said, how many of you have a plan for your marriage? What? I went, oh shit. And I really sat back and I started thinking. By the way, I was right in the middle of texting my wife, like, hey, let's kick out of here and maybe grab a drink across the street. I put my phone down and went, okay, you got me. And then he really went into, there's a way that we show up at the beginning of a relationship, and then what happens, right? It's called the law of familiarity.
Yeah.
And so, look, if a relationship isn't growing, it's dying.
Yeah.
It might be a slow death. It might be a long death. It might be a quick death, but it's dying, right? And so it really hit me like, if you're interested in having that relationship that's at a 9 or a 10, there's just a few little things that you can habitually or you can create as a ritual within those relationships that keep them at the 8 or the 9 or the 10, right? Probably never a 10. You will always be working at keeping it there. But so it's, for me, it's been a journey of that. And the more that I go out and I learn and I get coached and mentored, I come back and I bring it to the people in my direct community, meaning, my family, my agents, our offices, our staff. And for me, that's the important work, right? But you got to lead by example.
Yeah, man, there's so many great gems in this conversation. I would be curious to know those that listen to it. If you've listened to it, like whether you're dropping me comments in Facebook or on YouTube or in iTunes, wherever you're listening to this, dropping me comments on like what stands out, because everybody's going to hear this differently because everybody's at a different spot. But
Certainly.
there's some great gems in here. One of the things let me just say thank you for. You always blow smoke up my ass, and I just, it feels good. So thank you for that. But what I want to say to you is that I just get to watch you just keep taking life on. And in some ways I'm so inspired by how you do it, and that not just that you do it for you, but I get to see you doing it with others. And, the whole thing about like finding a skill set, to be able, and you're always pushing the envelope of like, what's next? Like, what's the next skill set? And you're so good about being honest. I feel like for people to really reinvent themselves and take on their important work, there's a level of honesty that you have to get to with yourself about what's not working. Like for you to say like, hey, this relationship in my previous marriage just isn't working. It takes so much courage and a lot of honesty to look at that, because otherwise it's easy to just not deal with it. And I think that skill.
It wasn't a decision that I made overnight. You know, I mean, it was now from the outside, just like success, right? Looks like, oh, overnight. You know, there were 3+ years that went into what do I got to do to make, you know, what do I got to do? What can I bring to this that could make it an 8 or a 9, right? Like what do I need to do? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And, you know, it came to a certain point where it was like, okay, at a certain point, you know, at a certain point, do I want to continue this path, right?
Right.
And, you know, there was a lot of conversation involved in that. But I'll tell you something that ends up happening in this area of life and a lot of areas of life. Okay. What ended up happening is, you know, I left that relationship and actually very quickly, you know, I was in the process of really determining what do I want for life out of my life? Like, what do I want in life? What are my musts? Mm-hmm. And one of my musts was I wanted to be in a relationship where I could thrive, where it was with somebody where we had a trajectory where we wanted to go in life aligned. And there was nothing, I want you to understand, there's nothing, I don't want to be disparage my ex. Right. She's a wonderful woman. Like where she was wanting to go in life was here. Nothing wrong with that. That's her path. And where I was wanting to go in life was here.
Right.
And the more we went on, the more that gap became ever present.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was a painful decision. She's the mother of my child. I love her. I still love her. Right.
Right.
But I'll tell you what happens, like the aftermath of that is, what happens is people, and by the way, most people are coasting in their relationships. Most people operate around a certain level of fear within their relationship. Most people operate within a certain level of complacency within their relationship.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you make that break, like that radical break, and you move forward, people get triggered. Is I guess the best way that I can say it. People get really triggered, and they, you know, it really inflames that sort of like, well, what if my husband were to leave me, or what if my spouse were to, you know, decide that hey, I'm, you know, this is not the path we're going to continue on anymore.
Right.
Now that happens not only within the relationship, but that also happened like as we started our first brokerage, right? And as we started growing there, you know, what ended up happening is we were on a growth trajectory. And a lot of the people that we knew at the time, it's not their path, that's not their trajectory, and it's human nature. Look, it's human nature that the relationships that you have and the friends that you have, well-meaning, don't get me wrong, but you know, you've got to come to grips with a lot of people in your sort of sphere, in your circle, will look at that growth, and for them, it represents a lot of stress, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. And, you know, they'll try to, one of two things, they'll try to pull you back.
Yeah.
And, or they'll give you a lot of well-meaning, but negative feedback, like, oh, that's a lot. You know, I remember when we took on our headquarters, our main office in Spokane is 12,000 square feet, right? And it had to be, you know, it was an old abandoned building, had to be completely rehabbed. And, you know, there were a lot of people that were like, are you out of your mind? You know, when the model in the brokerage industry, where the model is going to like virtual brokerages, no offices, work from home, we were going the opposite direction and creating huge training spaces and collaboration spaces and private, you know, people are you out of your mind?
Right.
And so that's something that I would really highlight in terms of any kind of growth that you're going to do. Yeah. It will create a gap between where you're going or where you're at and where people who are committed to coasting or not taking on risk, it's going to create a gap. You just got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So continually over the course of every couple of years, if you look at, for example, Camry and I, if you look at our life and our sort of sphere over the last 6-8 years, it's you can almost go back and look at every couple of years. It's sort of like we grow into a new set of you know, people that we interact with. You know, right now we spend $100,000 a year on coaching, right? Most people would look at that and go, "Are you out of your mind?" But here's the thing, like I have a commitment to train and make a difference for and inspire people and have my agents have breakthroughs in their lives. I can't dabble with that. Right? I got to go get the best training I can possibly get and bring it back and deploy it and deploy it. I'm not leaving that to chance.
Yeah.
So it'll create a gap. You've got to continually be, and in the industry, you hear the phrase upgrade your friends. Look, that sort of insinuates there's something wrong with the friends you have. There's nothing wrong with them. They're well-meaning, beautiful people. But if you're on a path in life to grow, you got to understand that often you're going to outpace people who are content with where they're at. There's nothing wrong with that either, right?
Yeah.
So the growth trajectory comes with a lot of aspects to it that you should embrace or you should really understand early on.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, listen, friend, let's wrap there because there were so many gems in that. That was like a fire hose. That was amazing. Well,
I hope you got some workable stuff there.
Dude, I personally got some great stuff. I need to go journal now. I need to breathe.
Okay, so tell me this. Give me this gift. 1 or 2 items for you that really hit home.
Oh, trajectory. So if I think about like when anybody has important work, and I have important work, so there are places I want to go, and just there may be relationships or things I'm connected to that are in the way of that trajectory. And if I'm not noticing that, if I'm not present to that, then what happens is I can't get to my trajectory fast enough because I'm holding on to this other stuff, whether it's commitments or relationships or patterns or addictions or whatever. Like there's stuff here that's keeping me from going here. And I need to go unpack that some more, but
you're a people pleaser. And so you totally are, right? You're a people pleaser, nothing wrong with that. And as you grow, you got to understand Chris, understand that like you've got to sort of be at peace with that you're going to outpace some of your relationships.
And part of it is because I care a ton about people. And so and I'm also a maximizer. So I see people and I see the potential in people. And I'm often like, come on, like, let's go. And I'll stop the bus so that you can get on the damn bus. But like, you're never going to get on the bus.
Do you remember what you said to me? You said this. I'm like, how can you do these meetings and answer the same damn questions over and over again? Like, how do you have the patience? I don't understand how you do this. How do you do this to yourself? Do you remember what you said to me?
Well, you've told me this before, but just remind me what I said to you because I don't remember.
Or maybe what I heard, right? Yeah. And it was just yet one of 1,000 ways that you you support and you mentor people that you care about. But what I remember you saying was, you're right. I do have to repeat the message over and over and over and over again. And he said, Rob, what you got to understand is, for me, you asked about me personally, right? Because I was asking you about you personally. You said, Rob, you asked about me personally. There's a level of joy that maybe 1 or 2 out of 20, like there'll be 1 or 2 out of 20 that'll really take my message and grab hold of it and make something of it and run with it.
Yep.
And the joy in that is immense. But you also taught me an important lesson in that moment. And the lesson that you taught me was, look, some people hearing it for the 15th time and in a little bit different way, that's the moment it's going to connect. Some people, it's going to be the 60th time. Some people, it's going to be the 100th time. You've got to condition yourself. You've got to mold yourself as presenting the message in the most palatable of ways to make it where that message can be received, right? At the time you were really teaching like the DISC profile class. So the mark of a pro is learning how to deliver that in a way that will connect with them, not necessarily in the way that makes the most sense to you. Mind blown. That was a mind blowing moment for me, right? Because it was, you can operate in life like, I don't know how to make it any more clear for these fucking people. Or you can go look and tap into your commitment to making a difference for people and go, okay, like what metaphor could I deploy? What angle can I come at that would have these people, would have this person see more options than they're currently seeing. Yeah, and you've always been masterful at that. And I see you grapple with the people pleasing part of that as well.
I know I do. I love people. I believe in people. But, well, listen, thank you. Let me ask this. I would imagine people listening to this either would have questions for you because like your story is amazing, or maybe they're actually like in real estate. They're thinking about real estate. Maybe they want to partner with you and start a Haven office somewhere in their location. I don't know. Like, how do people reach you?
So look, let's just make it super, super easy. Best way to reach me, Robert Henry. If you're related to Chris, which you should be watching everything that Chris does. Chris is like a consumer of everything that's positive, and you're so gracious about sharing everything that you learn. So on Facebook, you just go to Chris's profile and look under friends, Robert Henry, because I have like the most unique name in the world, right? So if you type into Facebook, Robert Henry, you're going to find about 1,700 serial killers, and then you're going to find it, right? So just go to Chris Angel's profile. Of course, you've got the name Chris Angel. Isn't that funny? Just go to Chris Angel. What do you always say, with one L, or anyways?
With two L's, because we're from the other place.
Right. Go to Chris Angel's profile, look me up, and friend request me, send me a message. I love. My passion is helping people through breakthroughs, and it doesn't necessarily have to be real estate. It doesn't have to be any one particular thing, right? If you're committed to growing in life, you're gonna hit a ceiling. You're gonna hit a point where you're like, I don't really see how I can get through this. Right. That's what I love. That's the time and place that I love to be with people, is when they feel stuck.
I love it. So good. Well, thanks Ren, for being on the show. And I just love following what you're up to, and I'm glad that I get to be a friend of yours.
Likewise, my man. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you hey, seriously, I can never, ever say this enough. Thank you for the love you were willing to invest in me. Thank you for the time you were willing to invest in me. Thank you. Look, I was a hard charging, bullheaded, and I wasn't shy about telling you I thought you were absolutely off your fucking rocker kind of personality. And you took me head on and told me a lot of things I needed to know, but didn't necessarily want to know. And so I'll forever be grateful for your influence and for your mentoring. And I love you, man.
Thank you. Love you too. See ya.
All right.
Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.